The success of the art fair was a turning point for me and the community. For the first time, many neighbors openly questioned the HOA's iron grip on our neighborhood's appearance. But the victory was bittersweet. It only fueled the HOA board's determination to crush any form of rebellion. The day after the art fair, an official HOA representative showed up at my door. She was a middle-aged woman named Karen, with sharp eyes that seemed to pierce right through me. "Mr. Parker," she began with a tone that left no room for argument, "the HOA has reviewed the situation. Your event was a clear violation of the community guidelines, and the daily fines will continue to accrue. You have 5 days left to comply, or we will begin eviction procedures." I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "Karen, this isn't just about paint or rules. It's about people wanting to express themselves without fear. We're tired of rigid control that stifles creativity and community spirit." Karen's lips tightened. The HOA's role is to maintain property values and neighborhood standards. That's non-negotiable. It was clear the HOA was digging in its heels, refusing to budge even an inch. Determined not to back down, I ramped up my legal preparations. My lawyer, Sarah, was a tough and experienced woman who had handled numerous HOA disputes. She emphasized the importance of evidence and community backing. "We need to document every interaction, every notice, and most importantly, the voices of the residents," she told me during one of our meetings. "If we can prove the HOA is acting arbitrarily and not in the best interest of the community, we have a strong case." I started organizing neighborhood meetings to discuss the issue openly. Many people shared stories of similar frustrations: arbitrary rules, excessive fines, and a lack of transparency. One elderly couple recounted how they were fined for planting flowers outside of approved colors. Another family talked about losing their outdoor decorations during the holidays because the HOA deemed them unacceptable. While many neighbors supported my cause, not everyone was on board. Some feared retaliation from the HOA or simply preferred maintaining the status quo. At one community meeting, tempers flared. "We bought into Oak Ridge Heights for its uniformity," exclaimed Mr. Reynolds, a longtime resident. "Without rules, this place will turn into a chaotic mess," others argued back passionately. "Uniformity doesn't mean suppressing individuality or punishing homeowners for simple choices," said Mrs. Lopez, a young mother. "We need rules that protect our community." Yes, but not at the cost of crushing our spirits. The neighborhood was divided, and the HOA board seemed to exploit these divisions to maintain control. Then came the next blow. One morning, I found the turquoise fence splattered with white paint. Someone had vandalized it overnight. I immediately reported the incident to the HOA and the police. The HOA called it an unfortunate accident, but refused to take responsibility or investigate further. Neighbors were shocked, and some whispered that the HOA board members or their supporters might have been behind the vandalism. Sarah advised caution. "We need proof before making accusations," she said. "But this definitely shows the hostility you're facing." Despite the damage, I repainted the fence, this time adding a mural depicting unity and resilience, symbols that represented our fight. Realizing the importance of visibility, I reached out to local media again. This time, a popular community radio station invited me for an interview. Live on air, I told my story: the fight against arbitrary HOA rules, the struggle to keep my colorful fence, and the vandalism that tried to silence me. The response was overwhelming. Calls and messages poured in from listeners offering support, ideas, and even donations to help with legal fees. The story was spreading beyond Oak Ridge Heights. The HOA board grew increasingly nervous. At their next meeting, they proposed a new rule. Any homeowner found guilty of disrupting community aesthetics would face immediate fines and possible eviction without prior notice. The community outcry was fierce. I organized a protest outside the HOA office, with over 100 residents holding signs saying, "Respect our rights," and "Color is not a crime." Local news covered the protest live, putting the HOA under a spotlight they didn't want. With community support swelling and legal pressure mounting, I knew the battle was far from over, but the tide was turning. Sarah and I began drafting a formal complaint to the state's housing authority, arguing that the HOA's actions violated homeowners' rights. Meanwhile, I worked on a plan to transform the turquoise fence into a permanent community art project, inviting all neighbors to contribute their own designs and colors. The fence would no longer be a symbol of conflict, it would be a canvas of unity and freedom. The weeks following the protest became a whirlwind of tension, uncertainty, and escalating conflict. The HOA board, now publicly under scrutiny, refused to back down. Instead, they doubled their efforts to enforce their rules, but the community was no longer silent. It began with a barrage of letters, not only to me, but 24 of neighbors who had expressed support or taken part in the protest. The HOA threatened fines, liens on properties, and legal actions against anyone who challenged community standards. One morning, a few of my closest allies received notices threatening to suspend their community privileges, including access to the neighborhood pool and clubhouse. The message was clear: dissent would not be tolerated. Sarah, my lawyer, worked tirelessly. She filed motions to delay the fines and sought injunctions to prevent the HOA from overstepping their authority. One critical hearing was set for the county courthouse. I prepared nervously, knowing this could change everything. At the hearing, the HOA lawyer argued vehemently that the rules were designed to protect property values and community harmony. But at what cost? Sarah countered, "Your rules infringe upon homeowners' fundamental rights. The HOA is acting arbitrarily, targeting those who dare to express individuality." The judge listened carefully and ordered both parties to enter mediation, urging a peaceful resolution. The mediation exposed deeper divisions within Oak Ridge Heights. Many residents felt caught in the middle, torn between loyalty to the HOA's promise of order and sympathy for the homeowners fighting for freedom. Rumors and gossip spread like wildfire. Some neighbors accused me of stirring trouble, while others admired my courage. A few even warned me that continuing this fight might make me a permanent outcast. But I knew the cost of silence was far greater. As the dispute dragged on, local news outlets began covering the story more extensively. Interviews, debates, and live coverage brought attention to Oak Ridge Heights, a microcosm of a nationwide debate on property rights versus community governance. I appeared on a popular TV program to share my side. HOAs are supposed to foster community, not suppress it, I told the host. When personal freedoms are sacrificed for uniformity, it stops being a community and becomes a dictatorship. The segment went viral online, sparking conversations far beyond our neighborhood. Unexpectedly, a member of the HOA board reached out privately. Rebecca, a relatively new board member, admitted privately that she was conflicted. "I joined the board thinking I was helping the community," she said. "But I am starting to see that the rules can be too rigid, maybe even unfair." She proposed a secret meeting with some residents, including me, to discuss possible compromises. Meanwhile, the turquoise fence became a rallying point. I invited neighbors to paint their own sections with symbols of hope, unity, and personal stories. Children added handprints, artists contributed vibrant murals, and many wrote messages of support. The fence was transforming, from a source of conflict into a tapestry of community voices. After weeks of tense negotiation, the HOA and I, along with a group of residents, met with a mediator. The discussions were heated but productive. In the end, the HOA agreed to relax some of its most restrictive rules, allowing homeowners more freedom with exterior decorations and colors, provided they met basic safety and maintenance standards. In return, I agreed to keep the fence as colors within a community-approved palette, but with enough variety to preserve individuality. It wasn't a complete victory, but it was a start. The turquoise fence stood tall, vibrant, and proud, no longer a battleground but a symbol of compromise, resilience, and hope. The community had faced its conflicts head-on and emerged stronger, more united despite their differences. For me, the fight was far from over, but for now, there was peace. The weeks after the mediation felt like walking a tightrope. Though the HOA had agreed to ease some rules, the air in Oak Ridge Heights remained charged with tension. But amid the uncertainty, something beautiful was beginning to emerge, a sense of community beyond fences and bylaws. I decided that instead of waiting for change to happen, I would help create it. The turquoise fence had become a symbol, not just of resistance, but of togetherness. I proposed a neighborhood block party to celebrate our diversity, creativity, and new spirit of compromise. The idea was met with mixed reactions. Some neighbors were skeptical, fearing it might reignite old conflicts. Others were enthusiastic, eager for an event to bring us closer. With Rebecca's quiet support and many volunteers stepping up, we set to work organizing the event. We designed colorful flyers inviting every resident, emphasizing unity and fun. Local musicians agreed to perform, and food vendors from nearby businesses offered discounts. Social media buzzed with excitement. Hashtags like #OakRidgeUnity and #FenceOfHope trended locally. Even some HOA board members reluctantly agreed to attend, curious to see the community's spirit firsthand. The morning of the block party dawned bright and clear. Streets were decorated with streamers, fairy lights, and, of course, the now famous turquoise fence glowing with vibrant murals. Children ran around playing games. Neighbors exchanged smiles and stories. Tables overflowed with homemade treats, music filled the air, and laughter echoed through Oak Ridge Heights. At one point, I noticed Karen, the stern HOA representative who had once threatened eviction, sitting quietly, watching the festivities. I walked over and offered her a handshake. "To new beginnings," I said. She hesitated, then smiled softly. "I underestimated the power of community," she admitted. Others approached too. The elderly couple, who had once been fined for planting flowers, brought potted plants to decorate the common areas. Mr. Reynolds, once a staunch advocate for strict rules, joined a group painting a mural on the fence. The turquoise fence had transformed completely. What was once a symbol of division was now a vibrant mosaic representing each household's unique identity, side by side in harmony. Local media covered the block party extensively, highlighting how a neighborhood had turned conflict into celebration. Following the success of the party, the HOA agreed to establish a community advisory panel, ensuring that residents had a voice in future decisions. Rules were rewritten to balance aesthetics with freedom, allowing colorful expressions without fear of punishment. The neighborhood's renewed sense of trust and camaraderie became a model for nearby communities facing similar struggles. Standing by the fence at sunset, I felt a profound sense of accomplishment. This journey had tested friendships, challenged authority, and sparked debates, but ultimately, it brought people together. Oak Ridge Heights wasn't just a place where people lived. It was a community that learned to embrace differences and celebrate individuality.